it's a bit difficult to pick up a topic from midway in anywhere from PMP actually, because the topics in PMP are quite interrelated, and you got to explain the topics from initiation till the closure. It's also important to remember the sequence of project management activities that a project manager is supposed to follow. So what we'll do is we'll give you a quick background of this particular topic. That's how this procurement is initiated, what is procurement management all about, and then we will talk about the project manager's role in procurement management. Makes sense. Now, I do not want this to be a one-way conversation, guys. In PMP terminologies, I don't want it to be a push communication. I rather want it to be an interactive communication. Okay, so it would be better that we talk to each other. Any questions? Please pop up your question at any point of time. Any topic or any particular point you want to contribute to, or you want to say something to rest of the participants, you're always welcome. Just raise your hand, I will unmute you. Okay, we will take up this session as per PMBOK 5.0. The reason being, since 31st of July 2013, PMP has enhanced their version or upgraded their version to 5th edition actually. So as per 5th edition, these are the project management processes that you see on your screen. First question is, what is a project management process? Anybody want to answer? What's a project management process? Just in case you have gone through the first chapter of PMBOK, you must be able to answer that question. What do I mean by the word project management process? If you look into a dictionary, the meaning of the word would say word process is standard guidelines or procedures, etc., etc., right? But when I use the word process from PMP terminology point of view, it simply refers to activities or task. That's absolutely correct, Janet. It's task. It's just that PMI does not use the word task or activity when it comes to project management. They rather prefer to use the word process. So when I say a project management process, I refer to a project management task or activity that a project manager, a project management team, or any other key stakeholder is supposed to do or supposed to perform in order to complete the project end-to-end. For example, what you see on your screen, let's say develop project charter. If I talk about this is a project management process, or in other words, a project management task or project management activity which is performed by the sponsor or the customer, who creates an initial document that describes the border boundaries of the project or initiates the project. We can say the charter formally recognizes the existence of the project. So that's an activity, a document creation related task, which we call a project management process. Similarly, let's say control cost. This one. This is another project management activity which is all about comparing the project's performance in terms of cost or budget against the cost baseline, okay, to find out if there is any deviation from the set baseline. If there is a deviation from the baseline, as part of this process, we would raise a few change requests in form of corrective or preventive actions. So what, in a nutshell, we can say that starting from here, 4.1 till 13.4, all you see inside the lighter part of the table, these are all project management processes or project management tasks or activities that a project manager, project management team, or some other key stakeholders need to perform in order to complete a project end-to-end. Make sense? Any questions so far? See, questions are good. If I don't get any questions, there can be two reasons. Number one, I'm explaining it well, and that's why you don't have a question. And number two, that I'm unable to explain it properly. You are unable to understand the topic, and that's why you don't have a question. The first one is better, but just in case you have a query, please let me know. Okay, now in order to understand the project management processes in a better way, PMI segregates these processes into 5 process groups and 10 knowledge areas. Have a question from Naren asking us, does PM play any role in framing the cost of the new kickoff project? Yes. See, this might not be true for your day-to-day project management experience. However, as per PMI best practices, a project manager should be associated or should be assigned to a project at the very initial stage of the project. And the project manager should be involved in the planning, pre-planning, and post-planning phase of the project. So that way, the budget, the cost estimation, the budget, the scope baseline, the WBS, requirement documentation, scope documentation, everything is a responsibility of the project manager. The approval of those depends on the nature of the contract, might be with the sponsor or the customer or senior management or some other key stakeholder. But yes, it's a primary responsibility of the project manager as per PMI best practices. Okay. Now, what I was saying that we segregate the project management processes into 5 process groups: initiating, planning, execution, monitoring and controlling, and closing process group. This is depending on what stage of project management life cycle do we do these processes. For example, during the planning stage of the project, we do all these activities that you see in this particular column. So they are all part of the planning process group. Similarly, depending on the area of concern or depending on the focus area, we have 10 knowledge areas. For example, what all do we do in order to manage the schedule of a project would be part of project time management knowledge area. Okay. What all do we do in order to manage the project cost and budget would be part of project cost management knowledge area, and so on. So just to summarize, all these project management processes are broken into 5 process groups depending on what stage of project management life cycle do we do them, and they're also broken into 10 knowledge areas depending on when what's the area of concern or what's the focus of the project manager. Now, hope you understand that all the processes that you see in on this particular screen, on this particular table, okay, these are mainly primary responsibility of the project management team, leaving a few processes apart. How do we start a project? We start a project with the help of an SOW, a statement of work that initiates a project. What's a statement of work? It documents what am I expecting out of the project. It documents the product or the services that's supposed to be the outcome of the project in a detailed way. Okay? It doesn't focus on the work that needs to be done in order to complete the project. It rather focuses on all the specifications or all the characteristics of the final product or the deliverables that I'm trying to produce out of this project. Make sense? In case it's a vendor-supplier relationship, the SOW becomes an integrated part of the contract. Hope you understand that we initiate the initiate the project in case of a vendor-supplier relationship with the help of a contract, which is a legal document or a mutually agreed document between the customer and the supplier. Okay, and SOW becomes an integrated part of it. In case it's an in-house project, we might not have a contract, but we would still have the SOW. No, project charter is different. Project charter gets created by the sponsor, but that's after a vendor has been selected. SOW is different. It's statement of work, Naren, that comes as an integrated part of the contract. It describes the project deliverables. Now, with the help of a contract and an SOW, I can say that my project has been initiated. And from here, my first step would be to create the project charter. The project charter is again created by the sponsor or the customer, and this project charter in this process formally recognizes the existence of the project, and hence we can say only the charter gives the project manager the authority to spend organizational resources on the project. Without the charter, I don't have an existence of the project. Make sense? Up to this much. Is it clear, guys? How exactly do we start a project? Any question, guys? I'm just talking about how exactly do you initiate a project. Is this up to this much? Is it clear? You can confirm on the chat, on the question panel, or you can raise your hand in case you have a query. You have a query? Okay, somebody has a query. You see a hand is raised. Tina has a question on the charter. It is my understanding that the project manager starts the project charter. Can you comment on that? Tina, as per PMI best practices, charter is a primary responsibility of the sponsor or the customer, ideally the person or the organization who is funding the project, who is initiating the project. Okay? Charter formally recognizes the existence of the project and hence provides the authority to the project manager to spend organizational resources on the project. So it is not the responsibility of the customer to create the charter. It's not the responsibility of the project manager to create the charter. It's the responsibility of the sponsor or the customer to create the charter. You might tell me that, okay, but I create a charter for my projects. Why do I do that? That is because our customers have become lazy. They do not really like to do this, and they rather outsource this work to the fellow project managers, okay, from the performing organization. We create the charter and get it approved. But in PMP, we always consider the best practices, and as per the best practices, it's supposed to be created by the sponsor. Does the project charter achieve buy-in from the sponsor or the stakeholders? See, charter is a very initial document, Rochelle. It goes this way that it just describes the broader boundaries of the project. You cannot go beyond the charter. You cannot change the charter. It's a static document. So you can say that charter is the basis of your project, which draws the boundary of the project. You would rather create the project scope document during the planning stage, okay? When we get into this a process of defined scope, we come up with a detailed project scope statement and we get it approved by the customer. That helps me get the buy-in from the customer in a better way. Make sense, Russell? Do you have a flow chart just in case? I do have a flow chart, but that's not for this process. That's for the entire project management life cycle. So won't be able to discuss that in this particular seminar, or it's rather very lengthy topic, and you've got to have some understanding of the all the topics in this particular table to understand that. Who had a question? I had a raised hand from somebody that's gone now. I'm not sure. Okay. Now put yourself in customer's position. We said that the customer creates a SOW, signs the contract, and the project gets initiated. At the same time, we also said that the customer creates the project charter, and that formally recognizes the existence of the project. That means we are saying that a customer is responsible for drawing the project boundaries in the charter and is also responsible for creating the SOW, which gives you the description of the product, the end result of the project, okay, in the initiation stage of the project. Having said that, if I ask you to put yourself in customer's position, okay, what you would be, let's say you are the you are a project manager or from your organization, but you're going to escalate or outsource a part of your project, or you are simply going to outsource the entire project to some other organization. Okay, what would you do in that case? First, you would take a procurement decision. Once the procurement decision has been taken, then you would create an SOW and you would look for a suitable vendor to assign the contract. Does it make sense? I repeat, if you are a project manager from the buyer's organization, for example, you're part of a construction project and you want to outsource the electrical and plumbing work of that particular project, you would first create an SOW which describes the product or that you are looking for, the outcome of the project that you are looking for. Then you would look for a suitable vendor and you would assign the contract to that particular vendor. I hope that's very clear. So now, as we are discussing this, no, this is not called RFP, Naren. I'll discuss RFP, don't worry. So as we are now talking about procurement management specifically, so we would rather concentrate on the project manager's role in procurement management. In other ways, we would put ourselves in the customer's position to understand the project manager's role in a procurement management in a better way. See, procurement is just a fancy name for the word purchasing. So if you are purchasing something, you become the customer, you become the client, right? That's why all the topics in procurement management knowledge area needs to be considered from the customer or from the sponsor's point of view. From develop project charter till control risk, all the topics that we have in rest of the knowledge areas, we always consider them from performing organization's point of view. But in procurement management, we got to consider the topics from customer's point of view, because now you are procuring something, so you become the customer. Make sense? From exam point of view also, if not mentioned otherwise, all the questions from procurement management consider from customer or sponsor's point of view. Okay? Now, in order to understand the project manager's role in procurement management, let's quickly and very briefly understand the objective of the processes we have in procurement management knowledge area. The first process in this knowledge area is plan procurement management. Plan procurement management is the planning part of procurement, wherein we come up with a procurement management plan. Procurement management plan is a subset of the project management plan. You can say it's a subsidiary plan which is part of the project management plan, wherein we mainly take the decision whether to procure or not. For example, I would do a cost and benefit analysis to find out, is it really a good idea to outsource the work to some other organization, or is it a better idea to do it in-house? Okay. So that kind of a procurement decision is taken as part of planned procurement management process. We also select a suitable type of a contract. There are various contract types that we will discuss today, but we select the most suitable type of a contract as part of this process. Okay? Two things. Number one, we take a decision whether to procure or not. Second, we select a suitable type of a contract that we would use for procurement. Then in the conduct procurement process, my objective would be to select the vendor. How do I select the vendor? That's the process wherein I would raise an RFP. RFP is request for proposal. We would raise that. We would invite proposals or solutions from various vendors, suppliers, etc. We would go through the vendor selection process, that's obtaining the sellers' responses, going for bidders conference, etc., apply the selection criteria, and select the most suitable vendor that fits my type of work, my type of project. Once the vendor is selected, we would enter into the contract. So we can say this process is mainly the vendor selection process, right? We through an RFP, through evaluating the responses we received for the RFP, we select a vendor and we enter into the contract. The third process in this knowledge area that's as part of execution process group is control procurement. This is mainly the vendor management process. That means you look into the type of the contract that you have obtained, and accordingly you control your vendor to ensure that your project is performing efficiently. Finally, as part of the closure procedures, when you enter into the closure phase of the project, you would audit the deliverables from the supplier or the vendor, formally select or approve or rejected, and make the payments in case it is approved. Right. So you would go for a procurement audit, you would accept the deliverables if the deliverables fall within the predefined acceptance criteria, and you would formally close the project from your side. This is briefly what all do you do in procurement management. Any question, guys? No? I see somebody has raised hand, but unfortunately I don't see who is that. Okay, I have raised hand from 2 actually. Yeah, Rachel, I just unmuted you. Can you tell me what's your query? Yeah, Rachel, you can go ahead.
No, I had no question. Sorry.
No worries. Another person, Sankar, you had a query?
I'm sorry that earlier I raised the question. It is because that you discussed more about the project charter, and now I don't have any questions.
No worries, that's fine.
Thank you.
Another question from Narain, it seems. Okay. Is this sole responsibility of the project manager? Narain, it's a sole responsibility of the project management team. That includes the project manager. You can say that it's the responsibility of the project manager's office, okay, which includes the project manager. The program manager has to approve it, or if the project manager is reporting to senior management, they have to approve it, and the support staff, the various staff functions of the project manager's office. RFP, Phyllis, RFP stands for Request for Proposal. When you intend to procure something, when you intend to outsource something, you would raise an RFP in the market. That you would invite responses or proposals from various sailors available in the market. The sailors would raise would submit their proposals based on the RFP document. Okay, you would evaluate those proposals and you would go for the most suitable of the lot. That is a vendor selection process. We would not discuss vendor selection in much details. Just to give you a brief idea, that's the flow. That you raise an RFP, you obtain the seller's responses, you apply the seller selection criterias, you select the most suitable type of a response, and you finally enter into a contract. You can use RFP for procurements for products or services. If something is readily available in the market, you go for RFQ, request for quote. Why? Because in case something is readily available in the market, you do not really need the specifications or the detailed proposal in kind of a response. You just need the cost part of it. So you would simply raise for an RFQ, that is request for quote. That's true, Bishu. Thank you. Ashish has another point. Doesn't conduct procurement include the ordering and actual process of procurement apart from vendor selection? Conduct procurement is the entire vendor selection process wherein you raise the RFP, you go for the bidders conference, or the vendors conference wherein you clarify the doubts of the vendor, you receive the final response from their side. We call it a BAFO, the best available financial option kind of stuff. Okay, and then you get into you finally enter into the contract. We'll have to move ahead now. Let's discuss these points in a bit more detail. We'll now focus on the project manager's role in this procurement management process. What kind of response is called in related to RFP? Naren, it depends on type of the project you are going to submit. For example, let's consider a non-IT example. If my project is about constructing a building and I want to outsource the electrical and plumbing work, I would raise an RFP stating that these are my requirements, this is how the end product should look like, and the solution would be that how exactly they would do the electrical plumbing work, what material they're going to use, what would be the timelines, what would be the measurement criteria, and what would be the final cost. In case I'm looking for a solution to a complex problem, that is the project all about, then the RFP content would be different. So Naren, in a nutshell, the RFP depends on the type of product that you're going to procure. First of all, let's concentrate on taking the procurement decision. Very simple, we have to go for a make versus buy decision. As I said earlier, you consider which is more beneficiary. You normally consider everything. For example, you consider procurement from resource point of view, that let's say we do not have experienced resources within the organization to perform these activities, and hence we want to outsource. We might go for it from risk point of view, that this project work is very risky and we don't want to go for the work in-house, we want to outsource it. It might be from cost point of view purely, that doing the work in-house is costlier than outsourcing it, etc., etc. So procurement decision can be driven from any of the factors. But normally, when we go for a make versus buy decision, we keep all the other factors at their baseline value, and we consider the procurement, we consider the decision based on the cost factor. How? Step one, we define the product that we are actually supposed to generate. We calculate the total in-house cost. We calculate the total cost of outsourcing. Then we simply compare apple with apple to find out which is more beneficiary. Is it beneficiary to do it in-house or to outsource it? In a nutshell, that is a make versus buy decision. Let's say if you find out that it's more beneficial to purchase it from the outside, or outsource or contract out the work to some other vendor rather than doing it in-house, then you would take the decision for procurement. Make sense? Now you're becoming the customer because you're going to procure something. What's your next step? Your next step is to document the SOW. In case you have all the information about the product that you are supposed to purchase, you would put in every information that's possible. In case you're not sure that what you're looking for, that's always a possibility, right? Let's say I simply want to upgrade my IT infrastructure. I'm not sure what's the best possible solution. Shall we go for Windows 2008 servers? Shall we go for Windows 2010 servers? Shall we go for Windows 7 PCs or Windows 8 PCs? What kind of network topology we should have? So I would not document all the details. I would simply, share my requirements, and I would invite the proposal. So accordingly, the SOW would be written. Now, the most critical part, I have to decide what type of contract is more suitable for me. That entirely depends on what product I'm purchasing. In order to understand it better, we got to understand different type of contracts in a better way. Take a look into the current slide. We are mainly talking about three different type of contracts: cost reimbursable contract, fixed price contract, time and material contract. In cost reimbursable contract, we have a few subtypes like cost plus fixed fee, cost plus percentage cost, cost plus incentive fee, cost plus award fee. and we have also few subtypes in fixed price contract. And then we have something called purchase order. Please keep in mind, purchase order is not a contract type. It's rather a unilateral document wherein, let's say you want to procure something that's readily available in the market. You simply want to raise a purchase order, and it's not a contract rather. Then you would go for this kind of a document. Let's say I want to procure 700 computers or 700 desktop computers from the market with standard specifications. I would raise a purchase order. Now, why it is important to understand the different type of contracts? Because the role of the project manager depends or varies depending on the type of the contract. So we got to take a look into different type of contracts quickly, please. First of all, cost reimbursable contract. As the name itself suggests, in cost reimbursable contract, the seller's costs are reimbursed and the buyer bears the highest risk of all contract types. Let's say I want to procure something, or I want to purchase something. I would simply go for cost reimbursable contract. I would create a statement of work. I would assign all the work to the vendor or to the supplier, and the agreement would be that we would reimburse all the cost incurred for the project. Additionally, there would be some fee or some remuneration separately given to the vendor. We can have a cost plus fixed fee contract. Example would be the total cost would be reimbursed by the buyer plus an additional fee, let's say $100,000. Okay, so whatever cost incurred for the project, time and material wise, okay, that's rather material and labor wise, would be given by the project manager. Additionally, a fixed fee would be also given by the project manager. Then you have the cost plus percentage cost, which is a bit different from the previous type. The entire cost of the project is reimbursed by the seller or by the buyer, and additionally a percentage of the total cost is given as a fee. Hope you understand that in both these type of contracts, the seller doesn't have any incentive or any motivation to control cost. If the cost goes higher, the buyer simply pays for it, right? So in order to ensure that the seller has some motivation to control cost, we have the third type, that's cost plus incentive fee. In this type of a contract, we have some extra bonus allotted for controlling cost or controlling any other parameter. And cost plus award fee is also very similar to the previous one, just that you have an incentive or motivation factor based on the percentage of the total cost itself. Make sense? Now, if we talk about the characteristics of this type of a contract, very true that the total cost of the project is unknown to both the parties. The cost going higher, the risk factor related to the cost, who bears it? Who has the risk factor related to the cost? Yes, guys, in case the cost goes high, who pays for it? Yes, the buyer. Because the seller is in a very safe zone, he doesn't need to pay anything extra. He is simply getting the cost reimbursed by the buyer. So the buyer has the maximum risk from cost point of view. In order to ensure that we actually do not run into a trouble like this, we have the second type, a fixed price contract. Pretty simple. I would say that these are all the work that you've got to do. Tell me what's the cost you need, or what's the total money I need to pay. Okay, that is a fixed price contract. We can have a firm fixed price contract wherein the contract is a value is fixed at a one single dollar value. Let's say you would complete all the project work, come what may, for $1 million. Simple. So that's a fixed price contract. Or you can go for a fixed price incentive fee contract wherein you have some motivation to the seller in order to beat a particular quality parameter or something like that. Let's say if you complete the work early, you would get 10% additional, right? And you have a third type called fixed price economic price adjustment, wherein let's say your project would run through for multiple years. It's always very risky for the seller to quote one single price, because the raw material cost, the labor cost would increase with time. So in this kind of a contract, you would have the price factor adjustment in second or third year. Okay. So again, what's the characteristics of this type of a contract? We can say that in fixed price contract, the seller has the highest risk from the cost point of view, right? Because in case the cost goes high, the seller still earns the same, less profit rather. The cost goes high, but he would still earn the same revenue, so the profit becomes less for the seller. Right. And then we have the third type, time and material, which is a blend of these two. In cases wherein I cannot explain all the factors related to the project, let's say my server is crashing again and again, I want IBM to find out what's the issue, what's the reason this is happening, and fix it. I don't know. It might be a software problem, a hardware problem. It might be simply something else, antivirus, virus-related issues, whatever. So as the solution is not known to anybody, the only option is to go for time and material contract. So IBM would have a contract with me that we would fix this issue at a contract value, let's say $100 per hour, plus whatever hardware is required has to be paid by you. That's an example of time and material contract. Or let me give you a non-IT example. Let's say I want to develop the pavement, the footpath beside the road. Now the total length and breadth is known, but it's a huge area. I'm not sure that what would be the total cost in order to create the pavement. So we set it this way, that the pavement cost we would assign as, let's say, $20 per square feet. Okay. Now, depending on the total area, the project would be charged. It's an example of time and material contract. Then I already discussed the fourth type, the purchase order. Considering all these definitions, if I ask you to find out the advantages and disadvantages of different type of contracts, I think that should not be difficult for you to do that. Simply, for cost reimbursable contract, the advantages are that I do not have to spend much effort to create the SOW. I would simply create the description of the project or the product, give it to the vendor, that okay, whatever the cost is, I will reimburse for it. Let's say I want a suit to be stitched. I go to the tailor. I tell him that okay, I want this suit to be stitched, and you go for it. So the seller would purchase the raw material. He would stitch it. All the material cost and the labor cost would be reimbursed by me. Additionally, I would give a separate fee to the tailor. So that's a simple, simple method of contract creation. I do not need to write a detailed SOW. But usually it would require less work to write the SOW, but the seller also do not have to add cost for risk. This is another very good point. Let's say if I have an assurance from the customer that whatever risk factor occurs, the buyer or the customer would take care of those risk factors, I do not really have to have a contingency budget within my cost. I do not have to add up for the unknown risk factors and quote a price. I would simply charge the customer for those risk factors that occur in reality. But think about a fixed price contract. In a fixed price contract, you would, in case you have to quote a single price, you would evaluate the total cost of the project. You would also add the buffer from risk mitigation point of view before quoting the price to the customer. So that way the cost reimbursable project would be a bit cheaper. But then disadvantages, it requires auditing sellers' invoices, hence requires more work from the buyer to manage. I always need to be careful if the invoices raised by the vendor is appropriate. So I have to look into it very carefully. The seller has a very little motivation to control cost and the total price is unknown. So now if I ask you, what is the project manager's role in cost reimbursable contract? Very simple. My first and foremost point is to manage cost. Ensure that the seller is not charging me unnecessarily for the cost. He or she is not billing me for something that is not justified. And we got to audit every seller's invoice. Right? Moving ahead, I have a raised hand, but looking into the time constraint, I will take up the question at a later stage. Let me quickly go through the content first. Coming back to the time and material contract, yes, it is quick to create and it's a very good choice in case you're hiring associates on a staff augmentation basis. But the profit is on every hour built. Here, the total price is not known to the seller. So the seller would try to sit on the project, simply delay the work, and would earn more profit. Seller has no motivation to control cost, and that's why it's appropriate only for small projects. It requires more day-to-day oversight from the buyer to ensure that the seller is not sitting on my project and the project is actually progressing. We have to set concrete deliverables to ensure that the project is moving. From fixed price project point of view, I'm in a good shape because I know that the total cost is known to me. The cost is not going to be more than that. But then I have a big disadvantage that I have to create a detailed statement of work. If my statement of work that's attached with the contract has gaps, the seller would later come back to me, tell me, hey, you never mentioned that this needs to be done. I would charge you for this. I would charge you extra for this. Right. So if my statement of work doesn't have the nitty-gritty of the scope, then I'm exposing myself to the risk that the seller would find out the gap, consider it as a change request, and would say that this was not included in the base price and would raise a change request on a paid basis. Also, if the seller finds out that the cost is not adequate and he's running short of budget, he would try to cut down on quality or scope, so that becomes another concern of the project manager. Right? Now, considering the advantages and disadvantages, if we try to list down the project manager's role in procurement management, let's go through it quickly. This should be just a recap because we already have discussed this. Cost reimbursable contract, the project manager needs to make sure that the costs which are charged are applicable to the project. Audit every invoice, make sure the seller's work is progressing efficiently. Watch out for the seller adding resources that doesn't add value to your project. Watch out for resources being shifted from what was originally decided. Watch out for the seller's charges that were not part of the original plan. Re-estimate the cost of the project whenever possible. So you can see that the focus of the project manager from customer's point of view or the buyer's point of view is mainly from cost point of view in cost reimbursable contract. Any doubt? Any question, guys? Yes. Yes. Any questions? No? Similarly, what's the project manager's role in time and material contract? Well, I don't have much, to control cost, but I have to control the time or the schedule to ensure that the project doesn't go out of my hand. If I can control the schedule, then the budget is somehow controlled anyways. Janet, fixed price contract is the first preference for the project manager from customer side. Only in case I do not have the option to describe the project scope in a detailed way, then only I would go for the other two type of contracts. Otherwise, I would always try to go for a fixed price contract from customer's point of view. That's the most frequently used contract type. Coming to this cost and material contract, then the project manager needs to provide day-to-day direction to the seller to ensure that the project is going through valid deliverables. Attempt to get concrete deliverables. Do not simply give up the work to the supplier or to the vendor. Rather, take some control of the project scope. Set some concrete deliverables, set some predefined target dates for achieving them, so that you have some control on the work being done. Make sure the number of hours spent is reasonable. Like I said, ensure that the vendor is not sitting on the project. Watch out for situations wherein switching to a different form of contract makes more sense. For example, I initiated the project on a time and material basis because I didn't know what's the actual solution. Now, after spending a couple of months in the project, the vendor is able to find out the total, the actual solution or actual root cause of the problem. So now I can go for a fixed price contract. I would tell them that, well, you now know what is causing this issue. Come up with the actual scope of the project and we will enter into a fixed price contract. I have a question from Skittage. Is there a threshold like number of hours, etc., which helps the project manager decide whether to go for cost reimbursable or time and material? It goes this way. In cost reimbursable, at least you have to define the end product, isn't it, Skittage? If you cannot define the end product, then you cannot go for time and material project. It's not that you have a criteria based on time or material. It's rather that it depends whether the final product is known to you or not. Like the example I gave you, my server is crashing again and again. I want IBM to fix the issue permanently. That cannot be a cost reimbursable project, because IBM would tell me that I need to check and go for a few tests to find out what's the actual problem. So I cannot guarantee how much time it's going to take. Accordingly, I cannot guarantee that what would be the total cost. So I cannot go for a cost reimbursable or fixed price. In case you know the solution, tell me, I would implement it. Otherwise, go for time and material. So the answer to your question, Skittage, is whenever the solution or the product is not known, we go for time and material. It's the least preferred method, and it's applicable only for small projects wherein, let's say, I'm hiring expertise from outside, or I'm hiring professionals from outside. Those kind of projects I would go for time and material. Okay? For example, I want to paint the entire interior of my house. I don't know how much cost it would take raw material wise or labor wise. It's difficult to go for the planning at an initial stage. So I go for a standard market rate that it would be $10 per square feet. Now, after the work is done, there would be a measurement done. Accordingly, the invoice would be raised. And then, as I said, the fixed price contract, now cost is no longer my focus. Watch out for the sellers cutting on scope or quality. Scope and quality are my primary focus now. And also ensure that we have a proper change control process in place wherein we have, we monitor the change orders, whether they are actually part of the contract or they should be charged separately, etc., etc. And as I said, ensure that the SOW is written very aggressively and in a detailed way. See, the exam would ask you a question that a project manager is trying to outsource a project on fixed price basis. What it would be his primary focus? Or it can give you a scenario-based question that a project manager is writing a statement of work, or he's spending a lot of time and efforts for writing the scope of work. So what kind of contract is he creating? The answer is fixed price contract. So be ready to answer both type of questions from this topic. It's important that you understand different type of contracts, and then only you can understand the project manager's role in procurement management. Have a question from Binu. Technical experts in the team have to give some kind of time duration. Project managers may not subject to expert in this area. Very true. So that's why we say that we try to give concrete deliverables. So let's say you decide that the maximum time for RCA, the root cause analysis time frame, is, let's say, 5 days. Once the root cause analysis is done, then the solution design, okay, that is another 5 days. So this kind of a time frame you might have, Minu, but you cannot really have a full and final project schedule like you can have in fixed price contract. So this is project manager's role in planning and administration and controlling of procurement. During the closure phase, the project manager would be doing mainly two things. One, the project manager would be involved in contract closure. Contract closure includes the contractual closure part, that is, perform an audit of the deliverables, find out whether the deliverables are within the acceptable criteria or not, and then accordingly close the project, complete the payments and close it. And it also includes the administrative closure, which includes the documentation part, that is documenting the lessons learned or documenting the project related information in the organizational process assets, etc. Okay? Administrative closure happens at the end of every phase and at the end of the project as a whole. Contract closure happens only once, that is at the end of the project. Both are responsibility of the buyer from in order to close a procurement process. If you don't have any further questions for me, this is the end of the topic. We discussed different type of contracts. We also discussed different advantages, disadvantages, and we also discussed the project manager's role initially in taking a procurement decision, then writing the SOW and entering into the contract, then finally selecting the suitable type of a contract, and depending on the contract, manage the vendor. Have a question from Shankar Raman. Yeah, you are unmuted, Shankar. Can you just tell me your question?
Yes. Yes. Actually, I have a question. Suppose that the project is fully completed, but I have not received the payment from the buyer. So in that case, can I close the project and release the team members, or how can I proceed?
Releasing the team members is concerned, yes, you can do that. First, please understand, Shankar, that we have a contract which is a legally bound document. Okay, it's a legal obligation for the buyer to pay for the project, right? So if the contract is, if the project deliverables are within the acceptance criteria, the buyer has to make the payments. Otherwise, the seller would drag him to the court. Please remember that. The contract is a mutually binding document, but then it's a legal document. And then, yes, if the deliverables are accepted and the project is scope-wise over, as per the release criteria for the resources, we can release the resources, but we cannot consider the project as contractually closed till the time the payment is not made. Hope that makes sense, yeah?